Good morrow, scholars. Welcome back to Ben's Two Cents. We're still talking about Star Wars because I'm still reading the book. I just thought I would go over a couple of things because my friend Miga from the Gotham City Critics, he seems to be having a really difficult time with understanding Star Wars. Now, I get that he's not a fan, he doesn't really like it, and that's fine, but he actively seems to go out of his way to misinterpret things so that he can make fun of it. He's basically Glenn Beck to my Jon Stewart. That is the best way to describe it. Michael is Bill O'Reilly to my Stephen Colbert. Anywho. So, one thing he mentioned not too long ago, and one of the biggest complaints of Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, is how quickly Anakin Skywalker jumps off the slippery slope and goes right into outright villainy. And on one hand, I can kind of understand. It seems almost out of left field, other than the fact that we've seen literally every single step of the way him leading, being led to this moment where he, spoilers in case you haven't seen the third movie, which is technically the sixth movie, where he kills the younglings. These being young children being inducted into the Jedi Order. Now, we've seen in the first movie his feelings of fear, attachment, and a huge mistake on the Jedi Council's part of informing him that he is indeed the child of prophecy, and getting special treatment because of this. This resulted in him becoming much more entitled and, I want to say confident where he should not have been. See, it kind of goes like with in Avatar: The Last Airbender. They wanted to wait until Aang was old enough to tell him that he was the Avatar, and not when he was younger, because, as you saw if you watched the show, his friends treated him differently, and he thought that he should get, or they were afraid that he would feel he deserved special treatment because he's the Avatar, which, interestingly enough, with him, was not the case. If anything, it was the opposite. In regards to Anakin, in Episode 2, we see his rage and the attachment, and his inability to, restrain himself is the best way to describe it, when he slaughters an entire village of Tusken Raiders. Now, George Lucas and others have tried to say the Tusken Raiders are a race of always chaotic evil, and they deserved it. That's not right. I understand that the males, or at least that one, tortured his mother and she died from the torture. I understand that. I can perfectly understand him killing that one or however many in response. I can accept that, very much so. But to say that all of the other ones deserved it because their race is just born that way is inoffensive, or offensive rather, at best, and outright horrible on the other hand. Now, if you guys remember, in the Sith teaching, one first needs to kill their family. Well, not their family, but you have to go through certain steps in order to become a Sith. One of them being, usually it's the killing of a family member, such as with Emperor Palpatine. When Darth Plagueis inducted him as his Sith apprentice, he enticed him into killing, I think it was his father, and Palpatine decided to kill his entire family. His brothers, his sisters, his mother, his father, everybody. He killed them all. And if I remember correctly, he killed them so brutally that even Plagueis thought he went a little over the top. This being Dark Lord of the Sith. Anakin, obviously he had no family left, but, you know, what can you do? His first induction into the Sith would be when he kills the Tusken Raider tribe. The second step would be when he kills Count Dooku, or Darth Tyrannus if you would prefer. Now the reason for this is the Sith are all about the strong weeding out the weak. And so they would always have constant rivalries between all of them, so that whoever lost was too weak and then would be cut off literally from the Sith, and then they could propel the strongest forward. So if Dooku were to win in that fight instead of Anakin, you know, Dooku gets to stay the apprentice, and then Darth Sidious will just prop up someone else to come along who may one day defeat Dooku, and then it'll just continue going that way. Anakin ended up winning, so this was his second step towards being a true member of the Sith. Hi, Adam. Say hi. He waves. His third step takes place when... Well, technically, it's when he... oh, no, never mind. I'll get to that in a second. It's when Mace Windu has Palpatine cornered and is about to strike him down with all of Palpatine's hatred, because, never mind, Vapad uses the opponent's darkness inside them to fuel his attack. Anyway, the next step that takes place is the murder of someone you respect. This being Mace Windu, the second most powerful Jedi in the known galaxy, after, of course, Master Yoda. Admittedly, Palpatine helped him, but Anakin's heart was in the wrong place, and it was considered, you know, good enough. Now, you gotta remember, all of this is bringing the dark side into him. So the more he steps toward the dark side, the more he is not himself. You have to remember, the light side is about self-control, self-restraint, passiveness, serenity. The dark side is a literal unbalance. Think of it as if you could bring in psychosis into one's mind, and it gave you increased physical ability. It's okay. The dark side is basically steroids, and the more you use it, the more you go into a rage. You know, roid rage. Anyway, think of it like that. That's where Miga usually misses the point. He's not just like, you know what, I'm going to be evil. This is something warping his mind and turning him into something he wasn't before. That possibility was always there, such as you could say there's always a predilection that one might have towards, say, drug abuse or alcoholism and whatnot. But it's not until you actively choose to do this to yourself that it becomes horrendously uncontrollable. Such as Anakin going from struggling with the fact that he just helped murder Mace Windu, or excuse me, Master Windu, to the brutal cutting down of all the younglings and Padawans at the temple. Because he is no longer himself, he is Darth Vader, an agent of evil at this point, because whatever was left of Anakin has been so buried deep beneath him under the dark side. All of the good qualities he had are gone, essentially. And I hope that Miga watches this video and understands that just because he missed the point... Now, I give him a lot of grief over this, because he does this with everything he doesn't like. Everything. To give you a little bit of a backstory, he hates Doctor Who Not because he thinks the effects are bad, the story is bad, or even because he hates the accent of the British peoples. It's because it's so popular. He derides David Tennant, saying he's not that good an actor, he doesn't do this, he was only in Harry Potter because he was Doctor Who. And I pointed out, he was famous before Doctor Who. That's why he was asked to be, or that's why he got to be the Doctor. The points he makes are built on faulty logic, and he doesn't seem to see that. So I'm hoping that he watches this video and learns to actually research something and then decide, okay, I see what it says, I see what it is, I still don't like it. That's perfectly fine. But to say, because you don't get it, that makes it bad? No, not okay. Anyway. So that's the reason for Anakin Skywalker so quickly becoming Darth Vader. Also, you've got to remember, he started out relatively good on the light side, right? Think of it as like a metronome. You go from about here to way over there, and it just stayed over there because that's how the dark side works. And this brings me to a good point that I've been meaning to mention, and I forgot to mention it in a prior video. During Luke's training with Yoda, Yoda warns Luke, or excuse me, Master Yoda warns Luke that if he takes the quick and easy path, he will become an agent of evil, like his father. And once you start down the dark path, forever will shape your destiny and consume you. It will. And a lot of people say, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I remember this one particular cracked article with the whole do or do not, and how he shouldn't go and fight Vader because he wasn't ready, and how he was completely wrong about it. Now, here's the thing. Master Yoda warns Luke against going to fight Vader early because, number one, that's exactly what they want, and they say this in the movie quite a lot, because Luke doesn't seem to get it. The only reason he sees this vision is because the Emperor knows that Luke will come running to save them. Much like in Harry Potter, Voldemort used a vision to get Harry to come and rescue Sirius, even though he didn't have him captive. You remember. Now. I can understand you having a little bit of a problem with him rushing off, and then it turns out, oh hey, he actually made it. Cool. Hang on, let me get this out of the way. Now, the problem with their problem isn't that Master Yoda didn't know what he was talking about. It's that they could not risk Luke Skywalker falling down into the dark path the same way Anakin Skywalker did to become Darth Vader. They knew that he wasn't ready, and the risk of him falling to the dark side was too great, they felt, for him to go and rescue his friends. He only barely managed to escape. Now, an interesting thing, he only escapes because Darth Vader was holding back. Because that's his son. And he was only holding back because that's his son because there was still good in him. They were so afraid of Luke Skywalker's inclination toward the dark side, the same as his father, that they couldn't see Darth Vader's good coming out enough to save Luke. So they were absolutely right that he would have fallen to the dark side had it happened that way. But because Anakin Skywalker was still there, he prevented Luke from falling to the dark side, even though he didn't stop him from falling down the hole into the bottom of Cloud City. Spoilers in case you haven't seen the movie. And he was able to make peace with himself and his inclination towards the dark side. So, I hope this helps. If you have any problems with the Jedi or the Sith, let me know down in the comments. If you have a problem with the way Miga thinks about things, he's a hipster, technically, if not in name, in spirit. Really, he hates anything that's popular because it's popular. Seriously, that's the only reason he ever gives anything, is he doesn't see how it's so beloved, and he doesn't see it deserving of the hype it gets or whatever. That's his only complaint. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough. Sorry about that, you guys. Yeah, so that's Ben's 2 cents. See? Oh, interestingly enough, it almost costs 2 cents to make a penny. Until next time, goodbye, everybody.